we're just chatting. I told Anthony just let people in because he asked me a green room question, and I said just let people in. I'll talk about this in front of everybody before we get into kind of the training and welcome everybody in. But Anthony had asked me, we're talking about what does it mean to be a trusted advisor, and that's going to be the topic for today. And we'll give you a little bit more background on that. But what does it mean to be a trusted advisor when you have all this competition around you? And I'm actually dealing with that right now, where I have people I would even consider my friends like competing me with in certain space that
Yeah,
and so there's things that we say like here's what we recommend, here's what they do well, and then here's how we stand out. And I said to
yeah,
Anthony, I said, I really think there's a mindset that goes with that other than just the prompts and the words and the messaging, because that's what we do. We help people with communication strategies and go to market communication strategies. Is what is that messaging in order to build trust, connection, relationships? But in the background, I think as a speaker, what you really need to be anchored to is what Anthony and I talk a lot about is your vision, your values, and your vows.
yeah,
I have to be completely committed to my passion for what I'm doing, even if I have a friend come alongside me and want to do the same thing and compete with me. Um, we can get easily very defensive, but if we're passionate about getting our message out there or getting our product out there or whatever it is we're putting messaging behind, it's not about who you're racing. It's this, Joe and Antonio. It's like a racehorse who has blinders on. They put the blinders on so they're not snapping at each other. And I think when you put the blinders of your own values on, like, I'm just trying to solve this problem, I'm just trying to contribute to this, then it's not so much about grappling with somebody else as it is just saying committed and congruent with what you do. So I'm going to geek out on this, Anthony, as we kind of get into this today. All right. You ready to go, Anthony?
Yeah. Let me get the slide up on the screen and we'll set up the micro training.
All right. Well, let me welcome everybody to the presentation. Jim, my name is Brian Sparks. I'm an executive communication coach with Heroic Voice Academy. My co-host is Anthony Lee, founder and executive communication coach at Heroic Voice Academy. The goal of this show is to become a fully prepared conference presenter. These presenters are recognized for authority, respected for their leadership, and rewarded for their impact. So I love the fact that we were hearing a minute ago, Antonio uh, is eager for a second conversation, and he used some of the tools that we talked about. I've used some of the tools just recently and got invited to a big event in Dana Point, which I'm super excited about. I'll be chairing an Opal event, which is a very large, high net worth family office event that values great presenters and great speaking. So these tools work. We eat our own cooking. And so we encourage you to dig into these topics today. All right. So, Anthony, we're talking about trusted advisors. Where do we kick off with this?
Yeah, let's talk about contextually. When is it important to bring the voice of a trusted advisor into the conversation? And I have a few situations here that's on the screen. I'm going to start with the first one. And the biggest concern, Brian, that I hear is I don't want to sound salesy. Now, that's a bad word. We all know what it's like to be pitched against our will. And what we're bringing in here is instead of bringing your sales voice, why don't we bring in the voice of a trusted advisor? It sounds different, the intention is different, and it lands differently. So in the process of today's workout, you're going to get a good sense of how to use this advisor voice in your sales conversations. Brian, do you want to pick any of the three other ones?
So, any of the three other
We
advisors,
have,
what?
we have board meetings, we have hiring conversations, we have partner and sponsor conversations.
Yeah, I think I want to reemphasize whether it's any of these conversations, anchoring this to what your vision is, your values are, and also what you're committed to, which we call vows. I definitely want to double down on that because you want alignment. Let me give you an example. I was talking with somebody today about the importance of startups knowing just as much and vetting just as much of their funders as they do of you. I mean, they're doing their due diligence on you. Are you doing the due diligence on them and seeing the alignment? So, for example, if I'm with Bay Angels and you're pitching to me, uh, you're going to want to ask me, what am I aligned with? What is my thesis? What do I bring to the table? It's not just so much, is there a money opportunity, but are there other things? Because you may want to pass. It's just as important to qualify people as it is to disqualify people. And so just competing doesn't really provide the trusted advisor um, framework that we're looking for here. So I'm excited to do a deep dive in this. It's a great framework in terms of how you present your entire pitch, not just your competitive slide.
Yeah, and Brian, I love that you brought this up to the big picture because if you're in any one of these four situations, finding alignment is going to be the key. What is the shared vision? What are the shared values? When you have those locked in, then it sets a foundation for these conversations and making them as successful as they can be. So Brian, let's take a deeper dive. Tone. What does it sound like, right? The pushy salesman is not the type of voice we want, right? Everybody sucks, so choose us. That's not the tone of voice. So in terms of what can an advisor voice sound like, what do you listen for? What do you trust?
So the top of mind, I'm going to add to this. I might be going off in the weeds, but you and I, during our last workshop, we talked about the different voices that we use, and one of those voices is the voice of a contributor. And so a voice of a contributor really is where you want to start every presentation. And not to confuse everybody, if this is the first time you're hearing that, a voice of a contributor really starts with, I have this idea, I have this problem that I want to solve that I see in the world. And you want to be a part of it. You're not looking to, stand out and say, hey, I can cure this. I'm the superhero. It's like, I want to be a part of the solution. And so you provide the information based on your expertise. You do it in a way that engages others and brings others in professionally. And when you do that, when you look to get collaborations, you naturally produce trust. So I think that's really what's important in terms of becoming an advisor. You're also using the framework that we're all looking to contribute for the best outcome to solving the problem that you may be taking on, or even the problem of somebody else. Anthony and I talk a lot about connecting with your audience through empathy, understanding how important your issues are to solve in the world is just as important as understanding somebody else's drive to solve a problem. So I think when we talk about the connection triangle, the voice that we choose to use, as well as these frameworks, there's a lot going into this that we kind of talked about at the top of the hour.
And Brian, the contributor voice, I'm glad that we're always going back to that. That's what you open with. Antonio, I know you're getting ready to present on the plug and play stage, and that's going to be the first 15, 20 seconds of your presentation. I'm here to contribute to a better future for you, whatever that looks like. When you shift into the middle part of your presentation, this is where you're looking to showcase how your solution is a great option. Okay. And in doing so, frequently we're in comparison and contrast mode. Brian, we all often talk about the skill of contrast. And contrast, when it's done, let's say, in a non-trustworthy way, it's these people suck, we're awesome, buy my solution. And that is something that we've heard over and over, and that doesn't sound like any voice I can trust. Instead, the framework we want you to use is edify the competition. Right? Company A is doing this one thing really well, and we're grateful for that. Company B is doing another part of the solution really well, and we're grateful for that. Now that sets you up. If I heard that, it's like, okay, I I may have chosen solution A or solution B. I feel okay about that. And now it sets it up. But if you're looking for the whole solution, something where you're doing great at A,
Mm.
B, and this new category we're calling C, let's have a conversation. So that's what I want to communicate. Brian, expand this. I really love how you talk about the ecosystem. You're really building up all members of the ecosystem and then making yourself stand out. Break that down for us.
Yeah, I'm going to start with again the analogy of blinders on a racehorse. The blinders are really again having you focus on what you value, and being in the ecosystem that I am in, whether it be in the startup ecosystem, the financing ecosystem, family office. I'm kind of creeping in the professional athlete space. There's a lot of ecosystems that kind of come together and you really start to develop some great relationships. And as I mentioned earlier, in that process, you may start seeing that you develop friendships and relationships with people you may be competing with. And I don't like traditionally competing with my friends. And so it's hard. And what I've discovered is when you have these boundaries around, you know, the competitive mindset, you can really start to identify what other value people bring. So let me give you an example. I do events. I have three very close friends who do events, but we all do them a little bit differently. On the surface, you would say, well, all three of you are doing events and you all do great job. And a lot of times you talk with the same people, bring the same people. But there is a distinction between us three that I focus on, that I learn to value. It's almost on where energy, where attention goes, energy flows. And so I have learned to remind myself continuously to focus on what I appreciate about someone else that they do well. And this goes for people who are close to you and people who you don't even know. But when you do this, you radiate an abundance mindset that everybody has a place at the table and that you're consistently seen as a trusted advisor. So it's really, again, getting back to what Anthony and I talk about in the beginning. We're all trying to solve a problem. We all have our values and we all have our superpowers. We talked about yesterday, I think it was, what is it, Transform, Anthony? We've been working with them. And
Mhm.
when you introduce, if any of you ever have a chance to be moderators or panelists, if you're a moderator, you introduce the panel. And one of the three things, I'll give you all three actually, but the first one is you identify what they've done in the industry. And the second one you can identify is what's their superpower. And then finally, what you can count on them for. And so you introduce them. Same way with, I believe, your competition. They're making an impact. They have a superpower. These relationships, they have superpower. If we focus on that and we appreciate that and make the distinction, then what we do well pops, and we can then connect people empathetically to what is of value to them rather than trying to take the cake from someone else's hand. And that's not a good look. Anyway, I'm geeking out.
Brian, I love, I mean, in this episode, what I'm really feeling is we're really diving into, how to make the theoretical practical. And you mentioned Transform. Transform is a HR conference that happens every March in Las Vegas. And the moderator will bring a challenge to the conversation. And each of the panelists brings a different answer or a different flavor of the answer. And what we've seen, Brian, what we encourage our moderators to do is to make each person on the panel look good. Whatever answer they have, they get credit for that. And you leave it up to the audience. You can choose nuggets of wisdom from any or all of the panelists, and that serves you. So whether it's uh, I'm sorry, a Transform conference for HR. I was doing the same for TED AI over the last 2 days. The leading voices in AI with all different opinions and pieces of advice. But at the end, the moderator's job is to make everyone look good. So, Brian, that's a great applicable situation. Let's talk about here the engagement. There's a call to think, right? You want someone to think differently. There's a call to feel. That's the call at the in the middle, and then there's going to be a next step that they take away. So as far as the experience from your frame, Brian, as an audience member, what happens when I see a stage full of trusted advisors on, as part of a panel?
Well, I mean, to kind of break down what you've put up here is when you're a trusted advisor, you almost expected people to take a next step. They're coming to you for insight, and so it's implied there's going to be a next step, and you want to facilitate that. And so as a passenger, again, giving people choices is really an act of empowerment. I mean, I know the word's up there, but when you give people choices, it naturally leads to that empowerment piece, the heart. If you're removing them, if you're saying, this company gets all the red check marks, like, rather than the X's that are and a green go, right? You're trying to take choices away from people. And when you take subtly and subconsciously take choices away from people, it disempowers them and they don't see you as a resource. I mean, it may start to generate fear and facilitate of movement to some direction, but in the background, you're really planting seeds of fear and it doesn't work out long term. So, as a passenger, you want to, again, give people choices. It then naturally empowers them. And then you facilitate what choice would you like to make?
Mm,
If you think of a
yeah.
waitress or a waiter who comes to your table, they're constantly asking you questions. Can I get you some water? Right? Can I start you out with an appetizers? And they're suggesting. I always like to mess with them sometimes. And you ask them, hey, is this good? They're always going to say, yeah, that's good. And it's good. They want you to continue to have choices. And I always then kind of make a tongue-in-cheek joke and I say, would you actually ever say that any of this food here is horrible? And I always get a good laugh, right? But really, when someone is constantly looking to serve you, they're giving you options. They're giving you something to drink. They're giving you something to eat. They're telling you about what's special. Um, and I think as servers to and contributors to solving a problem, we want to have the same mindset. How can we serve in different ways and then make our community, that was your question earlier, Anthony, how can we allow and empower our community with choices and opportunity?
Brian, that's excellent. Let me go ahead and just summarize this particular slide before we go into the exercise. So if we look at the call to think, everybody's a traveler. We all want to go to the same destination where a problem is solved. Now, the choice then is they're going to be a passenger on somebody's bus. It could be their own bus, it could be your competitor, or it could be on your bus. So again, they want get them to be a passenger and move towards a solution. The second one, Brian is exactly right. They may feel stuck. I don't know what to do. There's so many choices. But here, when you speak with the voice of a trusted advisor, they're going to be empowered. You've given them just enough advice and information so that they can make a good decision for them, for their own situation, and they can take the next step. So, Brian, let's set up the exercise. And these are the three cards that we want you to use. Antonio, this is something you may be doing as you take the stage because you're pitching a solution. So the first card is, these are your choices for today. I mean, we're showing light bulbs here,
Yeah.
and there's three different light bulbs if you go to a hardware store that you can buy. And then typically we see something like an XY chart, right? Where your competitors are plotted and you want to be in the upper right-hand corner. And then the last one is, if you do a good job in step two, like the standard light bulb is good because, the fluorescents are good because, but we want you to take a look at LEDs. LEDs are awesome because. Then this is something where they have three choices, and if you do your job right, they'll choose yours. Brian, any nuggets of wisdom before we go ahead and have these students try on this conversation?
Yeah, I want to, again, one thing I want to double down on, I'll be very quick, is empathy. If you're a startup, your customers have problems. If you're a subject matter expert, your audiences come to you because they want solutions. So you empathetically think from a pain point of the other. It's important, of course, to have your own expertise, but we never begin there. We begin with the pain that our audience is experiencing, and we speak to that, and we provide solutions. I mean, I hate tomatoes. Go back to the food thing, right? I hate tomatoes. So why is someone going to try to sell me their award-winning tomato salad recipe? Like, it's just not going to happen. So understand what the people are hungry for, what their pain points are, and then provide. I think you start there. You start with the empathy, and then you get to the choices, and then you start highlighting the superpowers, and then based on what they've told you and you've learned, you match make. So I'll park it there, Anthony.
All right, so I've put the prompts inside of the chat. So should you choose to do today's exercise, these are your starter sentences. And I think the best thing that we can recommend is follow Brian's advice. This is the place to be messy. Try these things on and get to your next level of competency when it comes to this particular voice.
All right, this workout is brought to you by the Heroic Voice Academy MasterClass. That is the ultimate class to take when it comes to developing your message portfolio. Go to heroicvoice.com/masterclass to learn more about the application process. Today's presentation gym is part of a 9-week workshop. Each week we'll focus on one presentation skill that'll give you insights and practical tools for developing a deeper connection, and recognized for your authority, respected for your leadership, and rewarded for your impact. We're here in Zoom and we're in LinkedIn Live. I got them switched up there, but messy. All right, if you'd like to jump on the show, you can go to heroicvoice.com/gym, click the Zoom button, and join us for a pitch practice. If you miss any of it, you can connect with us on LinkedIn to read the latest articles, watch the latest shows. But if you're looking for the whole enchilada, go to heroicvoice.com/gym. There you can find all the resources and tools to position yourself as a fully prepared presenter. For example, and as mentioned, you can enter the Zoom if we're live. You can book an appointment. You can go to the Academy page for all the online courses and templates that are free for you to use. And our free stuff is better than any paid stuff you'll find anywhere else. And finally, take a really cool scorecard for your personalized assessment to get a feel and understanding where you are with your presentation skills. Our topics are part of a weekly workout program that give you a deeper dive into a topic for the week. Anthony, your turn to rock and roll. Tell us a little bit more about
All right. So we know that getting in shape is not a once a week or a once a month experience. We give you multiple opportunities to work out, to learn, to exercise, and sharpen your skills. So on Monday, I kick off every Monday with a LinkedIn infographic. It's just a small graphical overview of what we'll be covering in the gym on Thursdays. It brings us to a radio show that happens on Tuesdays. Brian, tell us about the show.
So Tuesdays is exciting. It's the day I roll out my new episodes on Silicon Valley Impact, which is on 92.9 FM in the South Bay in Silicon Valley. However, if you're not in that particular area, you can go to Spotify and look up Silicon Valley Impact, where we talk to some really cool people about insights and innovation in the business world to help you kind of get a different perspective. Anthony?
Thanks, Brian. On Wednesdays, I publish an article or I repost an article that contains a deeper dive into the topic that we'll be covering on Thursdays. So you'll get a chance to read up on a particular skill. And then this brings us to Thursday. What happens on Thursdays, Brian?
Thursdays, we're always here. We're always here, most of the time, like 50. How many weeks in the year? 56, 52, what is it?
52.
Yeah, we're probably only missing one, and that's on Thanksgiving, right? So we're here 51 times a year, from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., one slide, one skill, and you're good for the week.
Yep. And then on Friday, I repost a summary of today's workout. I'm going to tag each one of you, and my invitation is Go ahead and share what was your biggest takeaway from today's workout. Well, Brian, this brings us to the workout section.
All right. And this is the fun part. This is where we get messy. And sometimes I'm reviewing what I say, Anthony. Did I say Christmas or Thanksgiving are we missing? Did I say?
I think it's both. We take it off for both weeks. So that gives
Okay,
us 50 episodes per year.
possibly. Okay, all right. So this is where you can come down and utilize the time to get feedback on this particular slide, this particular training, or you can bring up your own presentation to practice it for an upcoming pitch that you have or presentation, or it's just Q&A. It's just kind of really the laid back moment where we turn off the live stream and the recording. So let's just get messy.